Okay, so it's about 5 minutes, so I'm going to give you a brief bio on Alexandria, and then I will invite her to join the Instagram Live. So Alexandra Yamazaki is an international fashion model who's been based in New York City but travels throughout LA and Tokyo. Not only has she been working in the fashion industry for decades, but she also found an affinity for health and wellness due to having a chaotic schedule for years. Honestly, I felt that. I'm sure we can all agree modeling is a very chaotic career. We never have any real control over our schedule, so that speaks to me. After 5 years of working as a wellness advisor and contributor to this Japanese powerhouse, Total Workout and Total Foods, she has also strengthened her skills and has developed Total Workout and Total Foods has also strengthened her skills and helped other companies such as Hornell Anderson, now Sidley, with marketing and social media management. With Alexandra's combined passion for modeling and wellness, she has become her own brand and is able to work remotely, making modeling still possible. She works with brands such as Branch Basics, Vital Proteins, Thorne Supplements, and also develops recipes. She loves being able to turn food into art, similar to modeling, and sharing tips, whether that be on mental health, self-care, clean beauty, or food with her community. And then a bonus fact is that Alexandria is also a certified aromatherapist. So without further ado, I'm going to ask Alexandria to join the Instagram Live.
Hi, how are you? Sorry,
Yeah.
I stumbled over my words there, but if anyone might have missed that, I want to reiterate.
I'm just like making sure this is all.
Yeah,
Funny, like when you switch it to the like live and it goes into the split screen and just like, wait, what? This is so different.
yeah. It happened to me my first live in a long time. It cut off half of my face,
I know,
and I was just like, ah! I was
Yeah.
like, let me readjust this so everyone can see what's going on. But anyways, welcome. Thank you so much for talking with me today. I'm really excited to talk about, your work as a wellness consultant with Total Work and Total Foods, and then also these other brands you've helped out, and then also your experience at Hornell Anderson, which is now Sidley, as in, your work and social media marketing. So let's get right into it. Okay,
Cool.
so we know it's no news to many people that developing a professional brand online is important for career advancement. And you've developed quite a strong brand with a strong presence across various social media channels and an established blog. So why do you think building a professional brand is so important as a career pivoter?
Well, it's like for me, I don't know. I just I knew that, like with modeling and stuff, we are given like this portfolio that our agents choose like 10 images, like 10 to 12 images or whatever. And sometimes they're not even images that you feel that are like represented by you and things like that. And so for me, it was just so important to like build a website. It started off that way. And so I could just have somewhere that like all of my images and things that I did over the years like could live in case like they didn't want to showcase any of that, then the client could like go out and see that on their own if they felt the need to. And I feel like from just doing that, I didn't even realize that that would turn into like a blog and recipes and all these other things. And I just think it's really cool to see like the cross promotion within setting like a professional brand for that. And then you get to be able to allocate your skills in different ways. And then people, aka clients or whoever you may end up working with, get to therefore see those skills too. And then keep up that sort of like website or content or whatever you're doing, you're only building from there. And I don't know, I think it's that to me just surprised myself a lot. And I was just like, oh, okay, cool. This isn't as difficult as I thought it was going to be. And also now I have like a myriad of different skills. And
Yeah.
we live in like a digital world now. And so, I mean, like it's been transitioning that way for the past, I don't know, like 5-ish years. And so I think that if you almost like don't have that and just kind of rely on your agency to do the hard work for you, you're gonna like find yourself in some trouble later on potentially.
Yeah, no, that's really good advice. I think building your own, identity outside of what your agency wants for you is important because at the end of the day, obviously our career journey as models is kind of like a finite journey. Like there is an end date. It
Yeah,
comes
no,
slowly for others or fast for others, but it
yeah,
comes at some point. So I think that's a really important thing to share is start working on your own career development and be like your own advocate instead of relying on others to do that for you because
definitely.
yeah, I think it's easy for you to get comfortable. It's like, okay, my booker is going to send me my chart. They're going to set up these meetings with clients, but it's like you need to start figuring out the ways you can control your career, whether it is sending your agency mood boards for photo shoots you want to do, or pitching photographers that you want to work with that you found through social media, and then going from there. I think that's really amazing advice.
No, for sure. Yeah, no, exactly.
Yeah, it's good because I think a lot of models feel like they don't have any control, and it often does feel like that despite being your own boss and being self-employed. But I think
yeah, and that's like
go ahead.
that's a hard thing too, is that like I feel like in the beginning when you sign with like a new agency, you're like new, fresh, and shiny, and then after that, like however many like months or a year wears off, like I don't know, the allure of you kind of like wears off too. And so if you can't provide any like tangible thing to, I don't know, like the digital space or to another client or whatever, then it's kind of just like, well, okay, now it's just I'm just gonna wait until I get a casting. You know what I mean?
Yeah, yeah. I think it's being like creative, being a creative problem solver and seeing what you can do to like build your, you know, your personal brand. Because also you mentioned clients too, you know, looking at your portfolio online or looking at your online presence. Now, clients are looking at your Instagram, and it's like, what kind of persona can you build that'll make them want to book you, despite all these other models out here who are just as beautiful or just as talented? It kind of sets you apart. Yeah, no, that's great.
Like now more than ever, like I mean, like my agency has our Instagram handles and stuff on our comp cards and everything too, which is so crazy to me. I never thought we're gonna be like modeling in an era like this.
No, I totally agree. I don't know if I'm gonna age myself or not. Maybe not. I don't find myself old, but when I first started working in New York, like Instagram didn't exist. Twitter just started becoming popular. And I remember the moment when I went to a casting and the sign-in sheet requested my Instagram name. And at the time I was in university, so I had it on private because I was just posting like, you know, classic college kid stuff at the library, at a party with my friends. And so I had to make it public. And at that point I realized like, oh, this is a serious thing. Like they want to know what I'm doing.
I remember that moment for me. I was in LA and like my agents were like, hey, by the way, like you don't have a choice on this anymore. Like you have to go public and da da da. And I had to do the exact same thing. And I'm like, well, I just use this for like my college like life.
Yeah.
And, you know what I mean? And they're like, well, you have to figure that out. I'm like, okay. And then
yeah, no, it's definitely changed things for the better, but also it's not always. But I think if you look at it and you use it the right way, it's for the better. So I have a question. So how have your experiences for modeling, whether it be highlights or obstacles, shaped you, and how did they motivate you to become a health and wellness consultant and content creator?
That's such a good question. This is like something I definitely like kind of stumble upon when I listen to it. But for me, more or less, I feel like they both kind of go hand in hand at the same time. Almost, I grew up in Seattle, which is a very like eco-friendly city. I grew up like composting and recycling, and like my parents gardened a lot, and we grew our own like herbs and things like that. And so this idea of wellness, I feel like always surrounded me. But on the flip side, I traveled a lot as a kid because my dad lives in Tokyo, and so I'd be traveling at least like 1 to 2 times a year for a couple weeks or a couple months, depending on like which months it was, as like a child. And then so having already like I was already like comfortable traveling, you know, and being gone from home and things like that. But when modeling full time and I added Japan and LA and New York into the mix, it just proved to me how like unstable our career and job is. And it definitely, I don't know, traveling for that amount of time. I mean, I would stay in one place for like 3 to 4 months and then be gone in another place for just the same amount of duration. And so it's just like, at a certain point, you're just tired. And because of that, I knew that like I had to figure out a way that I could make some sort of like my daily life like calm and stable, because that's the opposite of like what our jobs are. You know, like always having to be on the go and like changing travel plans like last minute because you get a notification of, you know what I mean? It's always like go, go, go. And because of that, I knew that I needed to like figure out a way to like kind of hunker down, so I would be able to, I don't know, sustain like what we're doing. And then another thing too that like I kind of saw as an obstacle, also a highlight, is that we're constantly on these shoots or whatever, and something that like we can't control is the products that they're using, the makeup that the makeup artist is bringing, like hairstyling products too. And I remember leaving a couple of shoots and like my face would, I could already feel it, but like after like there was a bunch of foundation on my face, I could just feel my skin starting to break out. And whether that be like the makeup artist didn't wash brushes properly, or if I just had a reaction to what she was using, you know, like whatever that may be, I was just like, okay, I don't know, like now I can use this like knowledge going forward to kind of like see what else is out there, see if there are other brands that I could be using, other like ingredients that I could be focusing on, and like all the that kind of like all wrapped into one kind of shaped like my journey like towards wellness and like wanting to like know more about that, I guess. And like just from that basis kind of propelled me into like where I am now. But that was like years in the making. But it's also cool and a highlight in my opinion, because you get to like meet all of these people, and like I've met a lot of like-minded people on the way, like much like Ashley, I mean, you met.
Yeah.
But it was just, it's like really cool to be able, you know, to do all of that too.
Yeah, no, I think it's important to be, you know, to be not mindful, but to pay attention to those people that are pivotal along your career journey, and to remember them and visit back once you do decide to maybe make a career pivot. Because for you, for example, you know, you met people maybe in makeup or just clients you worked with that are, you know, creating more sustainable or clean products, and it's good to build those relationships for down the road, because you never know how that may be helpful to you to have that type of network. So yeah, I think that's really important that you did that. You know, building relationships in the fashion industry, some people think, well, I don't know if I'll see them again, or I don't know how this will help me, but you never know who someone else knows. Like it's also, it's so important to make a good impression and to, you know, build those bonds.
That's one of the biggest things I feel like I tell so many people, like whether they model or not, is I always talk about like how small the fashion industry is, and how the entertainment industry is like so small too. Like once you start working with those like people, and once you're on like, you know, like once you're on both coasts and things like that, like I feel like it just, the world keeps getting smaller and smaller. And like I've ran into so many people that I've worked with in Tokyo, like randomly in LA or New York, and it's just, it's interesting to like, you definitely do see people again.
Yeah, exactly. So make a good impression. Don't burn bridges.
Absolutely.
So you obviously wear a ton of hats, and a lot of your work is done remotely. So how do you stay productive at home, but also stay sane when juggling so many responsibilities?
It's definitely hard at times.
Yeah, I'm sure even now, more so now, because
it's like, it's so interesting because I'm so used to like working from home or like working remotely. But it's interesting now that everybody else is home all the time.
Yeah.
I have like my friends texting me being like, oh my gosh, like this is crazy. Like this is what you guys do. And I'm like, yeah, this is like, we've been creating our own schedules for such a long time. But one of the things that like has honestly helped me now during this time more than ever, and I'm so thankful like to myself that I started doing this, I want to say like religiously like 5 to 6 months ago, is building like a solid morning routine that you can take with you like no matter where you are in the world. And I feel like that also helps. I mean, like I started doing this like when I would travel a lot too, and this helped me feel like grounded and stable. But now obviously during like such an uncertain time, it's nice to feel like grounded as well. And so for me at least, I just make sure that I get up a couple of hours before I actually like need to start working or doing whatever I have to do for that day, that I can just have like a couple hours to myself of like solid quiet time. And then that usually consists of me starting with like a 10-minute meditation. I like have noise canceling headphones. I like wrap like a big blanket around myself.
Yeah, I've seen on your Instagram. It looks super cozy. Honestly, I wish I had enough discipline to do that. I feel like when I did try to meditate, I did it at night to help me fall asleep. So
honestly, the first time when I like first started like trying to meditate, I feel like it would be at night, and I'd always be laying down and I'd be like, okay, well I'm gonna go to bed, and like, well,
yeah,
I was like, well that's a peaceful thing too sometimes. But I like do that, and then I'll drink like, I don't know, a cup of like warm water to kind of like wake me up before I start like putting caffeine in my body.
Yeah.
After I do that, I try and like get a little bit of movement in, whether that's like rolling out my mat and doing like a home, like a quick like 20-minute like home workout thing or going on a walk, if the weather pertains. And like just being able to be in like that sort of headspace like really helps. That I have this like little checklist that I do that starts off with like 3 things I'm grateful for, 3 affirmations of the day, like 3 manifestations, which I know it sounds like a lot. And then like I just focus on 3 things, like 3 top priority things for my day that I need to complete for that day. And that's all I'll like let myself like think about. Otherwise, like I used to just sit in my room and just be like, oh my God, well, technically I have like these 15 to 20 things I have to get done by the end of the week. And now my brain is overwhelmed. So I'm just going to like sit here and ruminate on how I can't even do one of them. You know what I mean? So I just broke it down into like, what's like the bare minimum for my day. And then kind of like built it from that. And so just being able to like see that in like, I just use Evernote or whatever, but like just being able to like kind of build that out has like really helped my brain like be able to like look back at like whenever I feel stuck or whatever, I just look back at it and I'm like, oh, okay, that's right. I just have X, Y, and Z to do, or like, oh, I can cross that off. And there's something about like having a little like checkbox thing and being able to like click it and have the little arrow like check mark go is like so gratifying for me.
Yeah.
I'm like, whoa, I did one. Let's do it.
Do you ever do that thing? I feel like I do this still sometimes where I forgot to add something to my list, so then I write it down just to cross it off.
Yeah, for sure.
It was like workout, and I did it 2 hours before, and before I wrote my to-do list, and I just crossed it off.
Yeah, no, it's the best. Like,
It's like serotonin, like something's like dopamine or something's released when you cross things off. At least for me, I think you're the same way. When you're like highly organized, you're like, yes, I did it. It's done.
Yeah, no, it's just like I've had to be able to like list it out. Otherwise, it gets so like crazy in my brain, and I'm like,
yeah.
Oh, especially like when you work for yourself and like have your own deadlines, and technically like some of the deadlines like aren't even real. They're just like
in your head.
Yeah,
oh my God, yeah.
Yeah, exactly. So it's just like having like somewhere to actually look on it and like write notes on it has been so helpful.
This is kind of like having a meeting with yourself, like because like you said, you're self-employed. It's like you need to have a meeting with yourself. And I think it's important for, people who are aspiring to, own their own business or who are right now working as full-time models, just to build that skill of being able to reflect, figure out what you need to do, and build that morning routine so you can set yourself up for an amazing day. It's like small changes will lead to like great big results. So I think that's really awesome.
And that was like one thing that was so hard for me in the beginning. Like sometimes I would have like Monday through Friday, I'd like have an amazing like 5-day work week where I would do this morning routine, and then on the weekends I'd let it go, and I would just start to like notice like how much like I don't know, I just wouldn't be in a good mood. I would like snap more at my boyfriend, or like little small things would like really irritate me more than they would. And I'm like, like I wonder what changed. And I'm like, oh my God, that's like the big change. And like I just found that whenever I didn't do this routine, I just like I wouldn't have as good of a day mentally either. And so that's then the motivating factor is more just like to make myself feel sane.
yeah, exactly. It's all you need to put yourself first, always. Yeah. So apart from your work as a wellness and health consultant and content creator, you also had a contract position at a creative agency for the social media and marketing department. So can you share what you learned about going through the traditional hiring process, apply, interview, hire? We're not as models as used to that because someone usually sources the work for us and it's a little less formal. And also, what was one thing that surprised you most about working in a more traditional office environment?
So I would say, just to your point, like being a model, it's so like when I like even interviewed for that job, I was just like, it was a free flowing like conversation, and they're like, okay, great. Like, can you make sure you email me your resume and like a work proposal and all of these like words that I haven't like had to like think about for over a decade. And like resume, like my last resume I did was when I was in high school. Like I don't know the last time I opened this. Oh my God. And I was like, when I was updating it, I was having a really hard time figuring out like, well, what skills apply for like this job that I'm like applying for. And then like immediately I just felt this overwhelming sense of like imposter syndrome, and just like, well, maybe I can't do it. Maybe I don't know why they even wanted to interview me. I don't know why all of these things or whatever. And so I kind of just like had to like think deeply on that. And I was lucky enough to be able to like talk with my boyfriend about all of it, and he always reminded me like, you have to like realize that like because you do model, you have so many skills that like you just don't even think you have. Like you've been doing all of these things for such a long time, and so you're just not used to having to like write them out in like layman's terms for other people. And so that was like one of the most surprising things, like for myself, I feel like in like within like the like traditional hiring process, I guess, and like having to actually like work on my resume and like build a work proposal and like kind of like get rid of imposter syndrome, which is funny because I feel like what we do on a daily, like day to day when it comes to modeling is far much more scarier to a lot of people than like going into like an office job or whatever. But like, yeah, that part was like really interesting. And then once I actually like landed the job and got into the office, I was just so surprised by just how much I liked the environment there. And by no means, I mean, it's a creative agency. And so like, by no means was it like a normal corporate America stuffy sort of office. Beautiful. They have a beautiful office. It was designed by an architect. And it's insane. Like you're allowed to like work wherever you want. All the cubicles are like very free flowing, and like they just have like they have like a meditation room. You know what I mean? Just like all these things.
Yes, so that's amazing.
It wasn't like, oh, like going into like super like buttoned up corporate America.
Like a gray
like,
cubicle where you're like, okay, this first hour feels like 8 hours.
No. I like, if anything, I felt underqualified, like even being there. I remember like walking in and I was just like, I don't know if I should be here.
Yeah, no, I think we all feel like that though, but I'm so happy your boyfriend gave you that pep talk, because it's all about pitching yourself at a certain angle, or like your boyfriend says, writing things out in layman's terms, because I think where a lot of people may become, I guess, hesitant maybe about hiring someone who has worked in a creative industry or was a model, is that they don't understand the industry at all. So you kind of need to like paint a picture for them and like lay it out, so then you can easily pitch yourself and be like, okay, so I just told you what my career history was and the journey and what industry I'm coming from. Now I'm going to tell you why you need me at your company, or you need me at your business, basically.
I just think that it's hard too, because models, like we're not used to like advocating for ourselves in that sense. We're used to our like agencies advocating for us and doing all of that. And I feel like a lot of us get really comfortable just like taking a backseat into our own career. And then if we just feel like, oh yeah, like, I don't know, I'm not getting as much work anymore. It's like, it's more like, okay, well, whatever, like, you know what I mean? It's less of like figure out like why and like move forward. And so I feel like when you're not in an industry that's like pro you advocating for yourself on that front, it's like it becomes like very interesting when you're trying to like go into the actual like workforce or whatever. But I just remember like being in like my little team area, and I was just thinking like, wow, I'm so lucky. Like the people I feel like I got so lucky with my team, and like we all like really respected one another, and it was just so much fun to like be able to bounce really like creative ideas like off of each other and like work towards a greater good of like whatever the project was. And I was just like, oh, this is so cool and so different, but like awesome.
Yeah, no, I think that's also what I think that's like really good for people to hear, is that often in your head you build up this scenario where it's going to be really awful and people won't understand you, and like it's going to be a weird environment. But it's often more likely than not, people like to learn about others, or they like to hear about other stories. So like you said, it's important for models to start getting comfortable with advocating for themselves. And that's not only just in castings where, you know, you can have a grocery list of clients you name off when, you know, a prospective client asks you what kind of work you've done in e-commerce. It's like really taking the time to figure out what your value is and getting comfortable practicing speaking about that with people. So what other advice do you have for, you know, models who want to, you know, land maybe an internship or a contract position similar to that? Is there anything that you learned from that experience where you're like, oh, darn, I wish I had done that, or something you already talk about with models that you meet?
I think when it comes to like wanting to get into a field where it's like being at a creative agency and doing like digital marketing for some sort, I think that being able to really buffer up your own skills of if somebody wants to get into social media or digital marketing at all, like I feel like being able to buffer up your own personal skills, whether that's taking a course on Coursera like you were talking about, and doing all these things will really like help you. And then for me, at least, when I first started working there, I was lucky enough that I was working with oh my gosh, I'm completely blanking. I was working with a graphic.
It's all good.
Yeah, there we go. I worked with a graphic designer, and so luckily I wasn't having to make all these crazy graphics on my own. But they also had a podcast and all these things, and so I had to like manage that. And it was just like I don't know, like I started like really using like Lightroom and Canva and all these things, but I also use that for my own personal branding too. But I felt like, oh my gosh, like if I didn't know how to use Lightroom and Canva and these certain things, like that would have definitely been a little bit of a setback. And I just think being able to like already know a lot about like LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook, and whatever your company that you're looking for uses, whether that's YouTube, Vimeo, TikTok, whatever, I feel like being able to buffer up your own skills of that is going to be very important. And then you can just do that through your own social media as well.
Yeah.
That kind of provides you with a lot of practice and it feels like more comfortable, or at least I did. Like I felt a lot more comfortable like being in
of course.
Once I pulled back the curtain, I was just honestly like, no, this is what they're asking me to do is all work I know how to do. I do this for myself on a daily, like day to day. I just never thought about it in the way that they're presenting it.
Yeah.
And then my advice for somebody that's looking to get into a side hustle or finding their niche or their passion is just to really sit down and think about what you spend the majority of your time doing and like what actually like lights you up and makes you so happy, as cliche as that sounds. Because the thing about side hustles and passions and all of that and turning that into a career is that you are going to be spending like all of your free time doing it. Nobody's going to be paying you to do it. Like modeling in the beginning, you know, we worked for free for so long. So it's just like you better enjoy what you're doing, otherwise it's going to be a nightmare, I feel.
No, that's really important. I think to go back on your point about kind of educating yourself and taking the time to just, you know, be curious and learn more about the things you are interested in. I think that's so important, and to build your own projects. And then, like you said, you built your own website that hosted your portfolio. So I think for anybody watching who's interested in doing something similar to Alexandria, maybe make some mock-ups for brands that you would like to work with to show them what you can do. Because like you mentioned earlier in this interview, is that they might request a proposal from you for these social media marketing jobs specifically, but for other things that have to do with the creative side. And so you have to show that you're credible, right? So it's like, okay, I've been taking the time to take courses, to build my own little projects on the side, which I have posted on this website that I built myself. Like you need to be able to show your worth as much as you can tell your future employer what your worth is, right?
Yeah, because they don't know you, so that's the
thing. Exactly. You feel like they're a stranger to you, but you're also a stranger to them. So make them feel as comfortable as possible. I think it's important to do the role reversal. We often feel like the uncomfortable one, like, oh, it's just scary. I'm going to this interview. I'm applying for this job, but it's like they're more worried about you because you're an investment. Like they're actually investing you with the money that the revenue from their company. Like it's actually, you know, big weight on their shoulders as well to bring somebody on who's new and to make sure they're making the right decision. So
and like another thing that I like after working there for the first like month, I started to realize, I was like, honestly, like even when you start to feel scared or like have a sense of imposter syndrome go through you, like I just needed to realize that like there's a reason why they even wanted to interview you. There's a reason why you're even there. Why, like, yeah, like they clearly see something in you so that you're providing something of value. And so you should never feel like, well, they're technically doing me the favor because I'm like, you know, new, and you know what I mean? It's just like,
no, it's better. Don't set yourself back is what you're trying to say. Like, don't put yourself down before someone even says anything to you. I think everyone experiences that at some point in their life at certain degrees. And it's true. It's like, don't say no to yourself before they can even give you an answer. It's like, don't cut yourself down just because you're nervous about how others might perceive you.
Wait, I just remembered like one other thing too. Another thing that I think about is that, like, maybe I mentioned it before, is that, but like as models, like we have so many skills that we don't realize that we have, and like we've been like branding and marketing ourselves since however long we've been modeling, and maybe before that. And so it's just like, if anybody feels discouraged trying to get into the workforce or whatever, I feel like they definitely should not be, just because we've been doing this for so long.
It's still viable work. I think people are just I think people get set themselves back or don't allow themselves to thrive because they just assume the other person that they may be speaking to in like a workplace environment already has these stereotypes in their mind about them, which might not even be the case. Like, you don't know. We actually have a question here from Shivani, Live Shiv. She actually wants to ask, can you give an example of how you wrote out those skills? So when you were drafting up your new resume with your boyfriend or family members to apply for that contract job at that design creative company, how did you kind of craft your career story, and how did you use the lessons or the skills or responsibilities from modeling and like translate them onto a resume? Like, how did you do that?
I briefly like remember what my resume looked like after I did
no, just say the important points. I know it was a while ago.
but I feel like one of the biggest things that I didn't even realize was like, I definitely said something along the lines of like time management and like flexibility, and then related that into being able to like, you know, whether that translates into being able to like adapt to new deadlines or adapt to a new project or whatever, but like that directly translates from modeling, because we are like constantly on call, always have to do stuff on the fly, always have like the absolute like shortest notice on planet Earth for and like, you know, we're constantly juggling our own schedules, whether that be even in the same time zones, you know. And so it's just like having the ability to for me, I remember like writing something along the lines of like time management and flexibility and like being able to adapt, and like that can obviously be applied into any sort of like normal working situation as well.
No, that's a really good one, because as much as hard skills are important, I really think it is important to upscale your skills, whether it be on Coursera or Udemy or whoever it may be. As models, we have a lot of soft skills, and that's what a lot of the workforce maybe outside of our industry might be lacking, because hard skills can be taught, but soft skills unfortunately cannot be.
That's the thing too, is that we instead of like going, I mean, like some of us went to college, some of us didn't, or whatever, but it's like we have like life experience skills, whereas when you're just in college learning about, let's say, like digital marketing or whatever, you only have like a small amount of tangible experience when you're in school. But being able, like from modeling, like we have so much like real life, real world experience, which I think like it can't be taught in school necessarily.
Cannot. So true. So I want to know, before we wrap, this is my last question. What's next for you? Where do you see your career going in the next like few years? Do you have a plan, or do you kind of just go day by day?
I don't know. I'm such a planner by nature. But what my entire life has showed me, and now this quarantine, is that whenever you do have a plan, like life has a different plan. Like it's
oh my God,
And so whenever, it's funny because I travel so much, I have basically my entire year's worth of schedules like kind of mapped out throughout the months, which kind of sounds depressing now that I'm saying that out loud, but like from certain times of the month I have it blocked out for, well, when I'm going to be in Tokyo, when I'm going to be in New York, when I'm going to be in LA versus when I'm going to be home in Seattle. And so it's funny because like I was doing the exact same thing before this quarantine hit or whatever, and I was supposed to actually be in Tokyo.
Yes, oh my God.
Like staying here, which I'm like honestly so grateful for, because it's nice having a sense of like stability for once. But it's hard because I've like sat here so many times just wondering like what's gonna happen, and like what's modeling gonna be like after the world opens back up, and you know, just all of this stuff. And so no, I guess like I don't really have a plan, I guess, but I still want to like very much enjoy modeling, but right now I'm kind of just focusing on producing my first like e-cookbook, because that's something that like you can actually, I don't know, instead of like having
it's so smart, have a digital offering. And I could speak from experience. I tried her banana bread the other week and it was amazing. So if you guys are looking for a bomb banana bread recipe, I know you're all at home with these like brownie bananas. I don't know how they go bad in like 2 seconds, but definitely visit Alexandria's Instagram links if you haven't already followed her. But no, that's exciting. That's really smart to do. Start offering things digitally on your website.
I just want to like think of something that I can like tangibly like work on and do that like can't be like messed up depending on like the state of our world. I feel like that's like a little bit more like gives me a little bit more sanity in my mind. But book modeling is still a thing after this. It's going to be how the fashion industry pivots and what changes, what goes, what stays. What about you? Have
Let me think. I am really right now, I'm just trying to work on the pivots offerings as well, because like I mentioned at the beginning, I had created some worksheets for the community, specifically for models looking to make a career pivot, because resources specifically for us like are non-existent. And I'm also working on the website relaunch, so hopefully by the end of next month that'll be done. But the one thing was I wanted my friend to take some headshots of me and some like product shots.
Yeah.
But obviously I can't do that, so I'm getting a little creative and I'm trying to find alternatives. But yeah, you'll start noticing, anyone who's following along, that the brand colors have changed a little bit. I have like a new logo and stuff coming out, so you'll see a little bit at a time. But when the actual deadline is right now, it's kind of up in the air because I need images first.
No,
but
it's funny. I started thinking about my e-cookbook back when I was still in New York before I came home to Seattle. And I was like, oh, for sure it'll be done by May. And then all this happened. And then I like actually started producing it, like working on my ebook. And I was like, there's no way. Oh my gosh, I underestimated like how much time this was going to take. And
yeah.
I had to like completely remove the deadline because it's like it's stressful when you do that, especially when it's your own stuff. So
I know. I think right now deadlines are definitely flexible for in a lot of different spaces in a lot of different industries. But I just want to say thank you so much for joining me for this conversation. I love speaking about your career journey and just sharing with everybody who follows along about how you can make a career pivot, like multiple career pivots, honestly, because you're in all these different spaces. And if you guys are interested in watching another of the Pivot Pioneers IG Live Q&A, there will be 2 next week and possibly the week after. So just stay tuned for updates and I'll make sure to give you guys more information. Thank you so much, Alexandria. I'll talk to you soon.
That was so much fun.
Yeah, so fun. Bye.
Very cool. Bye.